Good morning. Welcome to the Thursday, June 22nd, regular commission meeting of your Santa Rosa County Board of County Commissioners. It's a little after 9 o'clock in the morning. We'll call the meeting to order. Morning, Sheriff. We have Monsignor Michael Reed with St. Rosalima Church, Catholic Church, here with us this morning to lead us in the prayer, and I've asked Commissioner Parker if you would lead us in the pledge. Please stand. Good morning.
Invite you to bow your heads as we pray. Almighty God, be with us. Bless the important work of the Santa Rosa County Commission as they meet and seek wisdom, courage, and vision in the face of legislative, policy, budgetary, and tax challenges, helping to meet the needs of our growing and expanding county. Shower your blessings upon them as they work to accomplish good things for us, the people of the county, who live and work here seeking a good life for ourselves and for our families. We pray most especially during these days for those affected by the recent and ongoing flooding due to heavy rains. We pray for our military, who are such an integral and invaluable part of our community, for NAS Whiting Field, for the many men and women who work, live, and train there, for our extensive law enforcement and prison officers and personnel, for our county workers who rely on this commission for sound regulations and policies. We come here grateful for our beautiful white beaches, our numerous freshwater rivers and lakes, our still plentiful forests, which make our area a desirable vacation spot. Most especially, Lord, give us a spirit of humility and cooperation that we will need to get necessary things done, not only for us today, but for future generations. With every idea, discussion, debate, agenda item, vote, and decision, may we produce what is truly in the best interest of our community and county. We ask this through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Monsignor and Commissioner Parker. First, we have the approval of the minutes of the June 6th, 2017 special meeting, our budget workshop, first budget workshop that we had, and the June 8th, 2017 regular meeting. Those minutes have been provided in your backup. I would now move approval of those minutes without objection. Hearing no objection, those minutes are approved. We now move on to the approval of today's agenda. And before I do, I just wanted to say to our county staff, Tony, really an exemplary job of trying to respond throughout areas of the county as we've dealt with the severe weather that we've had over the course of the last few days, an extraordinary amount of rain. And just wanted to say thank you to you and Stephen. Your team did a really great job out there, and first responders as well. And just want to say to anybody that has been negatively impacted by the amount of rain, we still are not out of the woods yet on this particular storm. This weather system still is moving through, but we're praying that there won't be any issues today, and that this will just pass through. Moving now to the approval of the agenda. Start with my right. Commissioner Parker, any changes or modifications you'd like to bring forward this morning?
No, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Lyncher?
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
Staff?
I don't. I think Roy has one he wants to mention.
Yeah, I'd like to add under the Administrative Committee, Item 3 on Venetian Way and Coronado Drive, the authorization for the chairman to execute all appropriate documents. We just didn't have that language in the agenda.
So it's just adding that language to item number 3?
Correct.
Okay, we've got that change read into the record. All right, move approval of today's agenda. The agenda is now approved. Now moving on to proclamation for Parks and Recreation Month. I've asked Commissioner Lynchard if you would do us the honor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We all know how important parks and recreation are to our families throughout Santa Rosa County. We have a great parks department, so I'm glad to enter this proclamation. Whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Santa Rosa County, and whereas our parks and recreation are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region. And whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas parks and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas parks and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community by providing a place close to home to relax, exercise, and reduce stress. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that July 2017 be observed as Parks and Recreation Month in Santa Rosa County, and encourage citizens to recognize the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Signed by Rob Williamson as Chairman of the Board of County Commissioners. Do we have anyone here, please? Okay. Well, we'll keep this and pass it along to Parks Department, and we appreciate all of the hard work that they do and their efforts to help get kids out from in front of the Xbox and into a soccer field or swing set or playground. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Lynchard. We have public hearings scheduled for 9:30, and so we will move on to our, we have a presentation this morning by Mr. Isaacson. Glad you could be with us this morning, sir, and the floor is yours. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Pastor Alan Isaacson, New Harvest Fellowship Church. Pleasure to be here today and appreciate the opportunity to present a military event we are doing July 15th to honor our men and women in uniform, past and present, and have a quick presentation for you if they could run it.
Have you ever wanted to give back to those that served in the armed forces? Well, now is your chance. New Harvest Church in Pace will be having a free family event on Saturday, July 15th to benefit Warrior's Journey. Warrior's Journey is a nonprofit that exists to offer insight, perspective, and support to warriors and their families. Come out for live music, great food, and fun family activities, including knockerball. Admission is free, and 100% of all donations taken in will go to Warrior's Journey. Bring the family to New Harvest Church on July 15th from 10 to 2 and help the warriors that protect our country.
Amen. We have, those of you that may not know, I actually served in the military for 9 years in the U.S. Navy and served on a destroyer in the Persian Gulf. And one of the things I'll never forget is the fact that we launched missiles. Part of my responsibility was to handle the classified communications to give to the captain directly. And one of those communications I'll never forget was the casualty reports from the missiles that we launched that day. And we use a term in the military called non-combatants. And basically what it means is the men, women, and children that were not part of armed forces that were killed. And to see that casualty report, just myself and the captain saw it that day. Who he shared it with, I'm not sure, but for that moment, it was just him and I in the room. I'm 50 years old, and I'll never forget that my actions caused the death of non-combatants. And I hate to use the term women and children, but that's the part. The point I'm trying to make is a lot of the wounds that our men and women who have served that come back are not visible wounds. They're both mental and spiritual. And Warrior's Journey has been set up by ex-military who are very faith-based that want to meet the needs of the spiritual side and the mental side of our men and women who are returning. We have a chaplain, an Army chaplain in our church, Eric Leto, and he works with the reserve unit. And one of the things we found out that was the reservists in this area, once they come back and they're no longer active duty, do not have the access to a lot of the care that our active duty continue to have when they're back in the States. And so he is partnering with Warriors Journey to work directly with the reserve units that serve a combatant role at times. And so we're having this great event, raising funds for, everything's free, but the knocker ball, you saw, that's where you get in those little things. We're going to have a dunk a chaplain. They wanted to dunk a pastor, but I've served my time in the water. And but we're going to have dunk a chaplain. There'll be carnival games. There'll be live music, free food, just a great time. There will be donation barrels out everywhere, so that if you'd like to give back, it's not just for the military. We want everyone to come out and just support this great event. All proceeds will go to this effort for Warriors Journey, and part of Warriors Journey is to put Bibles in the hands of our men and women who are serving overseas, especially in combatant areas. This is a Warriors Bible. It's geared specifically for the warriors and the issues that they deal with, the loss of loved ones, being away from their loved ones, from pointing a rifle at someone and taking their life. All the commentary in this Bible deals directly with those type of issues. And I would like, our church wanted to present one of these Bibles to each of our commissioners this morning. And I give you a challenge. You're more than welcome to keep it yourself and put it on your bookshelf and use it as you see fit. But what we're doing is we're taking these and handing them out to military men and women who are serving right now, and I would challenge you, if you would have the same notion, is to maybe hand it to somebody that you know that's in the military. But I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this July 15th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. If you're able to come out and help us, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Pastor Isaacson, thank you so much for bringing this in, and God lays it on my heart and the right person comes in front of me, then I will definitely think of you and pass this along. We do a lot of different things, and as serving in public office, and you get to see some pretty neat stories of people giving back to the community and without looking for any recognition themselves. They're just trying to figure out a way to plug in and lean forward and give back. And this is another example of what makes Santa Rosa County so awesome. That you and folks within your circle of influence there are looking to put this forward and raise some money to help folks that have made an impact in our lives. Thank you for your service as well and for sharing that personal testimony. I think there's definitely one opportunity that you would have to increase the donations. If you could have a district dunk the commissioner, I think that might help get your contributions up too. So maybe Commissioner Parker will sign on for that. Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alan, thank you for being here this morning, and thank you for your service and everything you do for our community. We appreciate your involvement through the years. Thank you for this, and it will go into good hands. So, and Mr. Chairman, if I could, on an unrelated matter, I did want to mention this morning, the other day, as happens all too often, I got an alert on my phone, and it was an Amber Alert. This was the first one I think I've seen in Santa Rosa County, certainly the first one in a long time that I've seen in Santa Rosa County. And just thank you so much to our law enforcement, our first responders. The job that you do is beyond compare, and the things that you go through, we appreciate it. It's heartfelt, and our community is behind you. And thankfully, the little girl was found safe and returned. So thank you to our law enforcement officers.
Thank you for bringing that forward, Commissioner Lynchard. That was thankfully one of those that has a happy ending. We'll make sure that these Warrior Bibles get to Commissioner Salter and Commissioner Cole, and I'm sure that they will appreciate that as well. Okay, we are going to move on now to the Economic Development Committee, and we'll come back to the public hearing at 9:30 when that happens, when we get there. So item number 1 is design and permitting of road extension. We discussed this on Monday, and I know that, Roger, we're going to include the pricing differences when we get or include the different prices of the segments of that extension when before this is approved by the board or finalized, before we begin any construction, we would know what the different cost estimates would be for these different sections, correct?
Right. The engineer who will be working through this RFQ will provide an engineer's estimate for those phases that you're describing.
Okay. Thank you. I'm prepared to move approval of item number 1 of Economic Development Committee without objection. Hearing no objection, item is moved. Item number 2 is a request for qualifications for economic development strategic planning. This is allowing us the opportunity to go out and solicit companies that would then work with our Economic Development Director, Shannon Ogletree, to provide a strategic plan. And this is so vitally important at this time as we're talking about possible Triumph funding, as we're talking about industrial park that's 95% capacity, and we look at what will be the next step for our county. When we look at what's happening in Tallahassee right now, with up until a few weeks ago, Enterprise Florida, the economic development funding arm for the entire state, was going to be zeroed out. There wasn't going to be any economic development funding. So when we start looking at charting the next course, or the next steps in our economic development for the county, which outside of providing for the public safety, that might be the number 1 charge, is us trying to make sure that we've got a healthy job environment. This strategic plan will be vitally important to doing that, with the uncertainty of Enterprise Florida and all the other things that have been mentioned. So I appreciate bringing this up. We haven't written any checks yet, but this will allow us to select a company that we could then decide those deliverables and move forward. So I'm grateful that you would bring that forward. Have comments by Commissioner Parker. You're recognized.
Only thing I would ask, Shannon, if before you come back with the results of the whatever firms submit their proposals, if you maybe between now and then, because like Commissioner Williamson said, we're not spending any money, this doesn't commit us to any obligation, if you could maybe bring 2 other reports from Florida counties that have done something similar to this or their strategic plan. As I've said in the past, and I actually told Ed Garber on the phone this morning, who's our federal lobbyist that this county's been using. Sometimes it's really hard to see the return on marketing dollars, so to speak, and so if you could just show us some examples that we would be looking at before we commit to spend the funds, I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you for those comments. I'd move approval of item 2, Economic Development Committee without objection. Hearing no objection, that item is moved. Item number 3, I-10 Industrial Park Infrastructure Improvement Agreement Amendment. This is approving an extension or applying for an extension for the infrastructure improvements to our I-10 Industrial Park. I would move approval of this item without objection. Hearing no objection, that item is moved. Item numbers 4 and 5 remain, we don't have any changes from those from Monday. I would move approval of items 4 and 5 without objection. Hearing no objection, those items are moved. Item number 1 of the Administrative Committee. We had directed staff, engineering staff, to evaluate alternatives that we could address specifically in the areas of PACE, and working with Commissioner Parker. I'm sure that we will see some good results there. I know that he's been very active in the area after the recent flood event. I would move approval of item number 1 without objection. Hearing no objection, that item is moved. Item number 2, the P Ridge Connector Road right-of-way. We talked about this on Monday, about adding up to $350,000 to the tentative FY18 local option sales tax project list. And you have that information in your backup to support that. Hopefully this project will move forward. Thank you for Commissioner Parker bringing this forward and working on this project. I would move approval of this item without objection. Hearing no objection, the item is moved. Item number 3, with the additions and modifications read into the record by our county attorney, I would move approval of item number 3 without objection. Hearing no objection, that item is moved. Item number 4 relates to the deputy pay increases. You may recall that the board decided earlier in the year to give clear direction on the fact that we wanted to see significant increase to deputies' starting salaries at the request of our sheriff, and we committed those budgeted funds early on in the budget process, and then part of that was I had made a recommendation that we take some of the funds that were going to be returned by the sheriff and see if we could have that happen in August as opposed to October. And this item is our sheriff has identified that these funds will be secure, I guess would be the best way to say it. And
Secure.
Now here to ask if we could bump that up an additional 30 to 40 days. Thank you for being with us this morning, Sheriff. Go right ahead.
Yes, sir, thank you. And I want to, I got corrected on the drive back to the office by my CFO. When you asked me the question, is this going to be for high risk only? And I answered yes. At that time, I thought I was correct, but I want to make you aware before you guys discuss this any further. I had dispatch included in that, or dispatchers, and I was under the impression they were high risk. Debbie told me they are not. So that has been included in this 1.6 million, and the grand total of that is $71,800 is out of that 1.6 million would go to dispatch. So when you asked me that, at the time I thought I was correct, but I was not. And so the starting pay for a dispatcher currently is $26,600. And comparative, I looked around just to see if we were on the same scale with the other agencies. Escambia pays $28,000, Okaloosa pays $30,700, and Walton pays $28,000. So we're about $1,500 below average on our dispatchers being paid. But I just didn't want you guys to go forward with this and then find out later that, hey, dispatcher's getting it, because I was under the wrong impression. So,
Commissioner Parker?
Yeah, I can definitely attest to having a comforting, calm voice, talking to you during a stressful situation. But I'm also accountable to the 400-plus men and women here at the county that have to provide food on the table for their families. Thank God for our dispatchers. Anybody that's ever worked with me during my decade of law enforcement won't question my appreciation towards them. But I do think that I would do an injustice to my county employees, specifically those 911 operators that we house in the EOC building, as well as the other, what we could, I guess, kind of like the Pastor Isaacson has said, the term's not good, but in law enforcement we call them non-essential employees. If we were going to move forward with the pay raise on non-sworn law enforcement officers, the non-high risk, the not the people wearing the guns or dealing with the inmates, then I would totally feel comfortable moving forward with that, but only if it was with the caveat that we could go ahead and advance the pay for county employees as well. And I don't know financially that we could do that, and I don't expect staff to be able to tell me that on the spot because we haven't discussed it. I hope that that you can understand where I'm coming from, but I mean, I don't know how I can look at the men and women working basically in a similar position, answering the 911 calls and tell them that.
right, and I don't know currently what they get paid. I don't know if it's the same as our dispatchers, less or more.
I couldn't tell you.
I couldn't either.
I don't think I can say specifically. At one time, earlier in the year, ours were a little less. I don't know, anyway, we'd have to check into that, but I know they're not more. I think at one point we were just a little under.
And again, I know it would be substantial if you looked at every county employee, but I've said it, I don't know if I've said it in public here from the board, but I know we've talked, and just like the man out there that I saw working on the ditch this morning on Hamilton Bridge on my way in, or the fellow out there running the cultipacker on the dump, I mean, I can sit here and justify, hey, we've got to get deputy retention and
Right.
recruitment, and we're asking these guys to go deal with people that most of the time folks are calling 911 because they don't want to deal with it. But I just don't know how I can look at the 400-plus county employees and tell them they're not getting a raise, but non-sworn are. And so before I felt comfortable supporting that, I would need Jane and Dan and Tony to look and say, could we advance all county employees' merit raise across the board for this year early? If that was the case and it wouldn't put us in a bind, I would love to do that for every county employee, but if we couldn't, I just don't know how that's prudent to the men and women that depend on us for their paycheck.
Right, and that's why I'm here today. I could have just said, oh, yeah, don't worry about it, but I don't want to get this passed under false pretenses by any stretch of the imagination. But I did want to let you know the statistics that we're dealing with, too. Since 2015, we've hired 21 dispatchers. 17 of the 21 did not make it through training. And we've lost 19 dispatchers in the same time period for better pay or taking other jobs. So it's not, but I understand where you're coming from.
I want to give them a pay raise, and I appreciate
Sure.
and respect you tremendously, as you know, and this is one more reason why I respect you so much for bringing this forward, and I'd love to give them a pay raise, but I just need to hear from staff, and again, I don't expect them to be able to tell me this figure on the spot. I need to hear from staff I can do this for all county employees,
Sure.
because I don't know how any of us could go look at, like I say, the men and women working for us and say that we didn't give them the same thing.
Right. What I would ask, though, is, and I can talk to Debbie, and if you do give us the money early, I will not upgrade or pay the dispatchers more. I'll keep that set aside, but yet the officers will still get the pay increase early, which hopefully y'all will vote for that today.
Wholeheartedly support that, and I appreciate it. I think you know where I'm coming from. This
I
is
do.
by no means not wanting, I mean, like I said, we're trying to hire guys to work in the dump for $11 an hour, and I mean.
And I understand where you're coming from. I look out for my people. You have everybody to look out for, so I understand.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Okay. Did not have a specific good discussion, but I don't know that we have any specific requests associated with this item. So I'm prepared to move the item as presented to recommend approval. Transfer the $193,000 to the Sheriff's Department for sworn law enforcement officer raises. Hearing no objection, that item is moved. We'll now go to the public hearings. And first public hearing, convene the public hearing for Savannah Plantation Subdivision Neighborhood Improvements, MSBU. Is there, thanks for being here, guys. Is there anyone here from the public to speak on this matter? Is there anyone here from the public to speak on the Savannah Plantation MSBU for neighborhood improvements? If not, then I'm prepared to close the public hearing. Public hearing is now closed, and I would move approval of the Savannah Plantation Subdivision Neighborhood Improvements MSBU as presented. Hearing no objection, that is approved. Now open up the public hearing on street lighting MSBU for Grand Bay Court subdivision and Pace Mill Creek Phase 3 and 3B subdivision. Approval of tentative rates resolution. Is there anybody, any members of the public here to speak on this matter? Any members of the public to speak on the street lighting MSBU for Grand Bay Court subdivision, Pace Mill Creek Phase 3 and 3B subdivision? Okay, then I will close the public hearing, and we'll move approval of the tentative rates resolution as you have in your backup. Hearing no objection, that is approved. Next, we move on to Are we good to go there, Roy? Those are good?
That's fine.
Okay. Next, we have the vacation request, Offshore Drive. Proposed vacation of a portion of Offshore Drive is requested by William Bird and Kristen Bird. We've opened up the public hearing. Is there any members of the public here who wish to speak to the board on this matter? Yet? Okay, please feel free to come forward. If you would, while this gentleman's walking up, if any of you would like to address the board today, please make sure to fill out a speaker's form, get that to Brandy before you leave today, and let's make sure we have our cell phones on silent today during the meeting, and then just give us your name and address for the record when you come forward. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Lewis Pittman, 4755 Offshore Drive. What this is, well, I don't really understand, to be honest with you. It's like extending the drive to possibly open it up for county right away. I don't really know. I know I've been there for 35 years. There's been a fence along the road, power lines, stuff like that, right along the side of our property is what it amounts to. The county actually owned that right away, I don't know, 40 years ago, something like that, and then it was turned over or shut down. So now what we're really seeing is they want to, or whoever this is, wanting to extend that right of way back out because they bought property beside it.
Actually,
And I don't know, and that's what I want to find out. Are they planning on actually wanting to take our property back to make the right of way? Because there's a right of way going through there.
there's,
If you would, I'll let the county attorney address the matter.
it's
maybe
actually
provide
the
some clarity.
opposite of what you're saying. The county has, by dedication at least, or by the plat, the right-of-way there that's never been opened or utilized. Actually, a large portion of it is, but it's all forested, and a large portion of it would be wetlands. So this would remove from the public or from the county the right to that right-of-way. It would vest in the adjacent property owners. So the road will not be opened up. The right-of-way would be vacated or closed.
Okay. Well, myself, I don't care. That road's there. Anybody can drive through it if they live down there. I don't care. But literally giving them more of the property to add on to that road when there's actually a road there, I don't see tearing all my stuff down that I've had there for 35 years to give it up. So that's what I wanted to find out. I didn't want-
The vacation would not affect any private property owners' interest in the property. It only gives up the right of the public to that portion of the property for our road purposes.
Right. And I don't think other neighbors argue with that as far as people riding down through there because it is open road. But in the end, I just didn't want to see everybody losing their property just to give right of way out to somebody that owns the property on the other side or whatever. I don't really know on that. So we just got this and I didn't totally understand it. So I wanted to come see y'all about it.
Commissioner Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can we put that up, the overhead? Yeah, the area of the right-of-way we're talking about is that area in red, outlined in red.
Yeah.
The
yeah.
vacation, that is a county, that's county property right now. So the vacation would take that property off the county rolls. It would no longer be owned by the county, and it would go to the owners of the parcels on either side. So it wouldn't be open to the public anymore.
Okay.
It would be privately owned by the parcel
Yeah.
owners on either side of it.
Well, that's fine. I mean, my mother-in-law years ago, there was the people that owned that property across the road from us, came in and actually was putting a fence across that driveway to shut people off from driving in there. Well, we had two neighbors that lived in there. So I wound up calling the law to stop it, but I'd already talked to them and told them, I said, if something happens, ambulance-wise or whatever, somebody gets hurt or whatever, you got a fence up there, a gate, and they can't get to them. I said, who's liable for it? So she wound up getting paperwork and having to come up here to deal with it then, and it was thrown out. So I just wanted to make sure like I say, that fence line has been there, I know, over 35 years. There's an old fence line there, and that's on the property line. And I didn't want to Well, for somebody to actually say, well, we got 15 foot onto your part of the property, we're gonna take it back, I didn't wanna have to deal with that. So, you know what I'm talking about on that part, so.
I do.
If your property adjoins the property that's, the right-of-way that's gonna be vacated, then you would receive half of that right-of-way.
Right. Well, the right-of-way, actually, our property goes on out into that right-of-way, or to the edge of it closer than what our fence line is. But myself, I don't care. Somebody can ride all they want to in there, as long as they don't run on my fence, I don't care. I mean, and that's what I was wanting to get at. I just
Well,
don't want to go in
again,
and tear everything down just to give somebody a right-of-way wider than what they already got.
The vacation by the county of their interest is not gonna interfere or change your interest or your neighbor's interest.
Okay. Okay, well, I appreciate it. That's all I need to find out.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
questions. Anyone else from the public like to be heard on this matter? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. I would now move approval of the vacation of a portion of Offshore Drive as requested by William Byrd and Kristen Byrd. Move approval of that objection. Hearing no objection, that vacation request is approved. We are now back on to our regular agenda item, admin, item number 5. Holding Pond, Hamilton Cove, you have the information in your backup. The $25,000 cost meets the appraisal cost, and I would move approval of this item unless there are any members of the public here to speak on this item. No? Okay. Then I would move approval of this item without objection. Hearing no objection, that item is moved. Item number 6, area of operation resolution. I would move approval of this item without objection. Hearing no objection, item is moved. Item number 7, amendment to lease assumption agreement. I would move approval of this item without objection. Hearing no objection, the item is moved. Items 8 through 12 of admin, 8 through 12. I would move approval of items 8 through 12 without objection. Hearing no objection, those items are moved. Item 13, Restore Pot 1 Discovery Center, Phase 1. There's no questions or comments from members of the board. I would recommend approval without objection. Hearing no objection, that item is moved. Looking forward to seeing that project move forward. Item number 14 is a meeting list. You have the list of meetings there in front of you for the remainder of July. We'll not read those into the record. I would
Mr.
move
Chairman.
approval. Commissioner Lynchard, go right ahead.
Just a note for the, it's not actually on this list, it will be on the next list that comes out, but I anticipate that I will be absent from the rezoning meeting, the end of July. I know Commissioner Cole is scheduled to be out, but should still have a quorum.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Lynchard. Be safe. Move approval of item 14 without objection. Hearing no objection, that item is moved. That takes care of the administrative report. The engineer's report, I would move items 1 through 5. Items 1 through 5 without objection of the engineer's report. Hearing no objection, those items are moved. Then we have Public Services Committee, Commissioner Parker.
Item number 1, recommend approval 2018 Citizen Corps Program for grant funding and to authorize Mr. Chairman to sign all related documents. If there's no objection, I'd recommend that be moved.
Hearing no objection, the item is moved.
And that concludes Public Service Committee.
Thank you. Fine job, sir. On to Public Works Committee, Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 1, Breezeway Circle pipelining. This is a recommended approval of proposal from Pensacola Concrete Company, Inc. in the amount of $33,736.21 for the lining of the stormwater pipe between 4252 and 4256 Breezeway Circle based on comparison shopping, and this will be funded from Road and Bridge reserves. I'll move approval without objection.
Sorry, I thought the numbers were different, but it's all good. Hearing no objection, that item is moved.
And item 2, recommend approval to purchase a 25-foot-long, 11-ton capacity trailer from A1 Accessories, excuse me, in the amount of $8,599.95 with funding from road and bridge reserves. And I will move approval without objection.
Hearing no objection, that item is moved.
And that concludes Public Works, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Lynchard. Budget and Financial Management Committee, Commissioner Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know of any changes that have been made to items number 1 through 9. Item number 1, of course, is to do with a lowest qualified bidder on a housing rehab project. Item number 2 is a Ponderosa MSBU issue. The repetition and everything else are budget amendments from actions that the board previously took. So I would recommend approval of items number 1 through 9 if there's no objection by the board.
Hearing no objection, items 1 through 9 are moved.
Item number 10 is I'm recommending approval of the county check register.
Hearing no objection, county check register is approved.
Thank you. That'll conclude the Budget and Financial Management Committee report.
Thank you, Commissioner Parker. County Administrator, anything new to add, sir?
The only thing I would add, Mr. Chairman, just you'd asked, I believe, last meeting, we hope to have our system changed so that we can do the consent agenda on a Thursday for our next set of meetings. So we would just be asking on the Mondays for the board to move either to a consent agenda or to the regular agenda for Thursday. So hopefully that'll be ready to go by then.
Thank you. Appreciate that. County Attorney?
Nothing further.
Have a fabulous weekend, sir. Public forum. Would any members of the public like to address the board this morning? Yeah, please come on forward. If you would, name and address for the record. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Wayne Mason, 8517 John Ham Road, Milton, Florida, 32583. I'm here today to ask for your help once again. I've talked to Mr. Furman numerous times, and I've got pictures on my phone, but because of this recent flooding, our homes are probably right now flooding as I speak. And we can do better than this. I mean, once again, I'll say this. If the state of Louisiana can keep the entire Mississippi River out of New Orleans, we can fix some of these issues. You know, and I don't mean to be disrespectful when I say this, but you are my employees. I'm a honorably discharged veteran. I'm a disabled veteran, an executive board member and trustee for the largest labor organization in Santa Rosa County, a helicopter mechanic that for the defense industry here at Whiting Field. I've lost everything I've owned in Hurricane Frederick, Aaron, Opal, I was about to say Katrina, but in 2004, Ivan. And when you've lost your kids' photos, all your military awards and decorations, you know, I mean, my pictures are the last 7, 8 years with my wife, and everything that I've ever worked for, some of the proudest moments of my life were washed down Blackwater River. And I moved away from any place that I thought could ever damage me flooding again. I love the water. And in 2014, my house flooded. And here it is again today. The conveyance of Tracy Drive and John Ham Road, one of my best friends that I went to school with is trying to get everything she has in her house tied up to walls and up on top of things because water is literally probably coming into her house as we speak. I spent $160,000 on my home, beautiful furnishings, and we need help with this. I mean, we really do. I know the state has came in and did some things there. And I don't know what we have to do to correct this, but we need help. And, you know, I'd ask for your assistance, and if there's anything I can do to help you. I mean, I'm a very smart person. My mother's Janice Mason, Mr. Andrews, you remember her? She gave a lot of her life to the county employment, you know, as Judge Melvin's secretary and a county court reporter. And there's a lot more people that maybe aren't here because they're dealing with this themselves, but this is definitely something we need help with. I don't know if we have to pump it across 87 or come up with the money to put a culvert in. Something, either that or buy my house and let me get out of there, but, you know.
You're talking about the corner of Tracy and John Ham?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm sure you know my dad.
Yes.
Alton. I will say I'm, even though he can be ornery and tenacious, I'm really proud of the fact that, you know, he worked the channels and had DOT come out there and do some stuff to the pond. I have sort of recused myself from this issue altogether, and even on those, I'm sure he would tell you if you asked him, as well as Mr. Furman, I've specifically chose not to take part since, you know, he's really tried to be sort of a champion on that issue. He even called me this morning, said he was going to come speak today, but I think just sort of out of respect and not trying to make it look like there was any influence, he decided not to come. He had made me aware, like you said, of the lady there that, you know, having water come back in her house again, and then the thing. But I will ask, since you brought it forward, and I hope you would respect the fact that I've just told him to work with Commissioner Cole on this, due to the fact that, like I said, the last thing is I want someone saying that, you know, I'm doing extra for somebody because my dad's involved, even though his house doesn't flood. But y'all are neighbors. I grew up right there on Tracy and John Ham for many years, and I understand it's close-knit out there. Mr. Furman, since he's here, I will definitely interject, though, since somebody else is asking about it. Where are we at on that issue? I know you've talked with my dad a lot and about what the state's done, and what are we doing as the county to address that?
Well, what we've done is initiated a program to try to clean the sediment out of the bottom of the county pit that's there off of 87. We're adjacent to the DOT stormwater retention pond. That pit originally was not designed as a stormwater retention pond. It was a borrow pit, but we certainly use it as a stormwater retention pond. The water from Tracy Drive, Kim Drive, and the other roads that overflow through that area are migrating to the west toward Highway 87. There's a large wet weather pond, wetland area in that northwest corner of John Ham and Tracy, and that's where the water is directed to. It then flows into the county pit, and at the present time, and I was out there yesterday on a couple of occasions, our pit is virtually full, probably full by now because there was still water flowing from the wetland into it. And when that all fills up, we don't, as a county, have a place to send the water. The power line does run through there, so we have to be very careful not to jeopardize anything under the power line easement by expanding our pit. But it is our intention to, and has been for a number of months now since DOT has done some repair work on their pond, to get our pond pumped down and clean the sediment off the bottom to restore the percolation in that pond. But just we've been overcome by rain for the last number of months, and so we haven't been able to pump the pond down. We looked at pumping it down more than a week ago after the recent rain, but the swamp was almost full, and so that would certainly have a negative impact on the residents down at the intersection of John Ham and Tracy if we're pumping out of our pit back into that swamp area. So, you know, we're kind of boxed in a corner there, and, you know, certainly be open to any major capital projects to resolve that isolated low spot. But as far as a good plan, other than, trying to restore percolation in the pond, or our pit area, excuse me, that's about the best we can offer at this time.
I will talk with Mr. Furman, and he'd be glad to talk with you too. I know also the fellow just north of her, I was told, had water in his shed as of yesterday, about maybe the feasibility, or asking to look at maybe if we captured some of those wetlands. I know he's got about 2 acres of wetlands, and maybe we could do some extension or whatever, but I think Mr. Furman will look at it, and I know he'd be glad to get you his contact information. I wish Commissioner Cole was here, but I'll definitely rely on Tony just to pass along the message of the residents out there. And again, I hope you'll respect the fact that I'm trying to abide as ethical as possible by sort of staying at arm's length from this issue. But I appreciate you coming and letting everybody know basically what I get to hear about every time it rains over there.
Well, in closing, I would like to say I appreciate you recusing yourself from it, because that, to me, is a very ethical and moral thing to do. In issues that I work, I've had to do that. I repeatedly, because of my position with the union, I lobby Congress and D.C. and also our state legislator quite a bit. So if you need any help beating them up for some money, I'd be more than willing to do anything that you ask. And I've got some good ideas how to fix it. I'm not an engineer, but as an aircraft mechanic, you on a 35-year-old helicopter trying to keep it flying 400 hours a day for the Navy, you come up with all kinds of ideas. But if I could, I'd like to leave a business card for you, Mr. Furman. And if there's anything I can do for any of you, I love this county. I was born in Central America to an Air Force family. But this is my home, and I love it. I love to see it grow. And my heart just breaks to see people suffer like that. I'm one of them, but I'm not even thinking about myself. I'm thinking about my neighbors. And I would like to resolve this in some way. And thank you for your time. I appreciate every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. My dad's a helicopter mechanic, former helicopter mechanic. They're good people. You're right about one thing. We can do better. And it's definitely a problem that can be solved. A lot of folks are hurting right now around the county, and I don't think that that's the fault of any department. I don't think that there's enough blame to go around on why we find ourselves where we find ourselves now. The key is for us as your employees to figure out what is the best way forward and to make the necessary changes that would result in improvements. And that's not going to happen by just hoping that it happens. That's not going to happen because, we would, have some magic wand that we could wave over it and make everything get better. It's going to take work, it's going to take planning, and it's going to take specific action steps that'll get us from where we find ourselves today to improved stormwater drainage and infrastructure tomorrow. We can't do anything about, and one of my fellow commissioners said, he's not going to take responsibility for anything that happened before November 15th, I think it was. I understand that sentiment. I wish it worked that way, but it doesn't. The second that you're sworn in, you own everything, good or bad, that happened before then. And now it's on us. It's on us. However we found ourselves here, that is what it is. We've got to do what's the right thing by the people who are paying our salaries and giving us the opportunity to have this amazing gig. And we can do better, and we will.
Thank you, sir. And if any part of my demeanor came as blaming anybody, that I didn't mean it that way. I will work with you, and I really, truly appreciate, you know, as a union representative, I get beat up pretty regularly, and you never hear the accolades of, you know, you never hear anything about all the successful things you do. You only hear, when you're elected into these positions, you hear the negatives. Every once in a while, you'll get somebody to come through and say, hey, I appreciate that. You did a great job. And from my standpoint, each and every one of you are doing a great job. And I can't say that enough. So don't take me being here today as any way, shape, or form being disrespectful or blaming anybody, because these are 100-year rain events, and our weather's changing, and you know, I bought a house that I thought I was going to be high and dry, and I'm not. But we can always excel and do things better than the person before us. And we're not, like you said, you're not going to wave a magic wand and make this go away. It's going to take hard work and perseverance. And that's the story of my life. You know, I've rebuilt many times, and I will work till the day I probably get put in the grave. But I really and truly appreciate everything you've done, because the state and Mr. Furman, he's never not answered a phone call. I mean, he's taken the steps to address it. And I'm just here to reiterate that we need to continue. And thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I think every member of the board has been deeply impacted by what we've seen in the course of the last week and even times before that. I don't think there's anybody sitting up here that hasn't walked the neighborhoods and seen the real-life impacts, and said we will do better. Would any other members of the public like to address the board? Hi, come on forward, sir. Good morning. If you would, name and address for the record, please. Thanks for being here with us this morning.
Good morning. My name is L.D. Henderson, 9517 Shumuckla Highway. I own River Resources. I'm the one that opened up a Scambia River log jam. I'm presently the only one in the state of Florida that has the permit for wildfall tree removal. I'm presently working on Bermuda River with the Scambia County. I have several acres leased in several places from Escambia County. Escambia County works with me real well on taking out the debris removal. Everything I've done have never cost Escambia County or Santa Rosa County one dime in taxpayer money. I'm probably insured more than any logger or anyone like that around here. I have to maintain the insurance due to the fact that I work through Escambia County. We have an excellent working relationship also with water management. I have discussed this with Mr. Furman before, up at Deaton Bridge up there, Santa Rosa County. When they remove that debris, they call it debris, which it is worth a lot of money. And recently, I've noticed it's been, when the county takes it out, it's been winding up at my competitor's yard up there. He's been processing it. I have discussed this with Mr. Furman. He's talked to me about it. He said he'd get back with me. That was 2 years ago. I haven't heard a thing. I'm not asking anything from anybody for nothing. I just like an equal opportunity at the resources. That's all I've ever asked for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like
Mr.
to
Furman.
Mr. Henderson, has approached Santa Rosa County about removing drift from our bridges, and we've explored it with the county attorney and the county administrator in the past. And due to the liability of having someone, removing material from the bases or the base of our bridges and not putting it out for competitive bids, if we were going to choose to do that, we were not in a position to just allow him to remove drift for his own personal use. I believe Mr. Henderson is under the misimpression that when we remove drift from these bridges, that we do make it available to someone. That is not the case. Any and all drift that we remove from the bridges, we deposit in areas that are owned by the Florida Forest Service, and the Florida Forest Service takes possession of that material, and some of that they do use in their sawmill operation for some of the materials they build for their parks, the split rail fences, and whatever they do with it. But we do not make it available to anyone other than the state.
When I follow the county trucks into the location I'm discussing, I pretty well know. I called you and asked you where it was going. You said it's going to a DOT-certified landfill, and I'm following your dump trucks. I have $5 million in general liability. I have $3 million in business commercial insurance. I have $3 million in pollution control insurance. I don't see how I could be any liability when I'm eat up with insurance.
And thank you for your comments, Mr. Henderson. I think if we believe that this is something that we would see value in taking out for bid at a later date, then I'm sure you'll bring that to the county administrator for us to explore further. Anybody else, members of the public, wish to address the board this morning? All right, hearing no further matters to come before this board, we are adjourned. Have a good weekend.